this is wonderfully healthy that he's like pushing the business aside and allowing for his own mental happiness to be developing something. So an early high five on that, just for creative health. This is a gentleman named Kurt with Hammerly Ceramics. I've learned a little bit about him watching some of his videos. Australia, mate. This is where he's at. Now, this video, I look at videos like really fast on the weekend, so I don't always watch them, so it's hit and miss. But I know this one is not about mold making. This is about, like the title says, 3D printing in clay. I didn't know there was such a thing, but I know they 3D print houses, so why shouldn't they be able to 3D print clay? So I get to learn today.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Hammerly Ceramics Studio. Today we are going to be printing some clay on the 3D clay printer that I got from Potterbot. It is a Potterbot XXL9 that I'll show you here in a second. We're going to be taking rough lumps of clay like this that are out of my pug mill, and we're going to be making some forms. They're not going to be quite like this, but they are going to be similar in some ways. We're going to do some planters, and then for the next couple days we're just going to be printing as much as possible and play with some finishing techniques. But for this video,
it's so interesting that I always like looking at a shop, but usually people get into ceramics because it's so tactile, because they want to touch the clay, and yet the 3D printing machine is exactly opposite of that. However, it allows for a mind space of introducing different ways to design things. When I was in art school, this is when Photoshop just came out, and when Photoshop came into the design departments, nobody knew what to do with the Photoshop stuff, so everybody was just making fake bus passes for the CTA. They didn't know nobody knew that Photoshop was going to be good for things. And I feel like 3D printing, especially in the ceramics world, is the same thing. I'm looking at his designs. They're things that he wanted to express, but I feel they're not maximizing the design potential that a ceramicist of his level could be having, but we'll see.
I just want to show how the operation of the 3D printer works.
Oh, that's why.
Show some of the forms that I'm making, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So here we go. So before we get 3D printing, we need to load up a couple of these plexiglass tubes, just one, with this clay that is fresh out of my pug mill. It's a little bit softer than normal clay. There's a little bit more water in it, and that allows it to print out of the printer nicely. So here we go.
Doesn't look easy. I wonder why that didn't split in half and then you could load it.
The clay is loaded into the tube, like so. So now we need to get the plunger in the back and the nozzle on the front, and then screw the whole thing together.
So I want to stop that just for a minute. Old school ceramic studios have an extruder, and basically it's a metal tube that has a die on the bottom, and you throw the clay in the tube like he did, but then you have this long lever that you pull down, and it forces the clay out of the tube through a nozzle that has a shape. And I was just thinking, you could have modified your extruder to just load this tube right here, not to push anything out of it, but to get leverage, because he was pushing like this, and I'll put a picture up of what a clay extruder is, but it has a long lever, and you pull it down and you have a mechanical advantage. Okay, so this is a little bit of get it done, but it looks pretty simple. It looks like a giant caulking gun.
All right, now we have the first tube loaded up with clay, primed and ready to go. We have a 5mm nozzle
primed
on the end there. The 3D printer is
in the
starting position, so we can level the tube and get it all ready to go. So I'm gonna just clamp it on and get that done now. Now we can...
Can you imagine how much dirt the keyboard has in it?
Don't forget to attach this. All right, so there we go.
Okay.
Tube clay is ready. And the printer is zeroed back to its position, so it's ready for us to send a file now. Okay, so today I'm not going to talk about file preparation or making 3D files or anything like that. We're just going to do the actual clay printing side.
So this is, I wouldn't do this normally, but I watched a lot of his videos. And so above his left eye, it looks like he took a hit, right? And what happened was, I heard him talking about he was hit on a car. He was riding his bike, and he had to have one of those traction halos. I was like, Jesus, glad this guy's alive to make this stuff, you know? You just never know. There's always a story, even behind the smallest things.
I'll talk about that in a later video, though. So here we go. So I'm hitting print with the file that I just made. And the printer's coming down.
This is kind of cool. We didn't have anything like it. No adhesion.
I screwed something up. All right, so as it is to happen with these sort of things, the first one did not work well. The settings were a little wrong, so I'm tweaking things, trying some different stuff. I'm hoping that when I get more experience with this, it will be more consistent, but for now, it's just gonna take a lot of practice and a lot of learning to figure everything
3D
out.
printing was like that at the beginning. There you go, pin it down. Okay. Don't look too close, right? Dizzy. I think those should be touching. I mean, it's super cool. I would leave it like that.
Here's
Done.
the first print of the day for successful.
Celebrate the process.
Overall, I'm really, really happy with it. There is some tweaking that's
Okay, so I know he's discovering this process in this machine, but I can't emphasize enough that even with some technology, if you're not creative with it, it's not really great. There's, of course, a timeline that goes along with this. You get the equipment, you have to experiment with things. So there's a lot of times just get it to work. But I'm already at the point of like, take your phone, scan your head, enter the file of your face and print a portrait. I mean, not a freaking planter.
It's gonna happen, but that's why I'm printing these small ones, is because I want to get the settings dialed so I can make a bunch of these in a way that I like, and then we can come up with some finishing techniques to practice on them. We have a bunch to test. And then once we get some finishing techniques figured out and we get the settings that we like, for planters especially, then we can take custom orders for any size, any
It lets somebody without
of
ceramic
this
skills make
design,
ceramics.
and then we're gonna go from there.
That's okay.
So when I talk about getting the settings dialed in, I think you can see what I'm talking about when you see these three examples that I've just printed. The bottom is made up of one layer of 3D printed clay, and it goes back and forth in lines to cover that bottom. And if you don't have it set to the right settings, there will be gaps between those lines. They won't fill out properly, and the bottom could potentially crack or just not work right. So these three different prints that I did each have a different amount of fill on that bottom layer, and that's what is giving me.
So just to kill the point that I'm trying to make, those planters, if he likes the shape, there's no complaints there. I mean, you like the shape, you like the shape. You have that texture that you better be in love with, or you got to come up with some other things. But to me as a mold maker, I'm like, oh, no problem, just make that mold. And you know, but it's a very generic shape. I wonder what he does with it at the end.
This kind of baseline idea of at a 5mm nozzle, I need to have the base layer with these settings so that it turns out.
So he's at the figuring out the machine part. He's not even into the design yet. So
now I'm printing.
I'm not doing him justice by talking about that too fast.
At this scale, they're pretty tiny, but it's still going to be useful for just making sure that the attachments work well. This model was designed to be printed significantly bigger than I am right now, and it will be soon.
It's pretty cool.
Now, The feet, pretty small.
I'd be printing letters and
So
calligraphy
we ended up with 5
and
planters off the 3D printer today. I'm pretty
jewelry.
happy about that. Holiday rush just ended, so I'm trying to just have some fun and relax.
Ah, good.
We had good results.
You know, this is an important part of business is there's crunch time when you got to make what sells, and then there's downtime for developing new processes. And a lot of craftspeople get trapped in they're always selling. You're always putting wood in the fire to stay warm. And there's not a lot of time left for developing new processes. And there's benefits to that, meaning someone gets really good at 1 or 2 things, but then they become over-specialized. And this is wonderfully healthy that he's like pushing the business aside and allowing for his own mental happiness to be developing something. So an early high five on that, just for creative health.
Results with all of them. Got the clay at the bottom to print dense enough that I don't think we're going to have any issues with.
He should have a
cracking,
shop cat.
or anything like that.
Totally
So
dusty
that's all I'm
shop
gonna do for
cat.
today. Next time we will be attaching the feet and then start to play with some finishing techniques to get rid of this texture and give it a look that is more of a finished product, in my opinion. So thanks for watching. I'm Kurt from Hammerly Ceramics, and have a good day.
He looks like just such a nice guy. Like, you know, you just kind of meet that guy at an art fair and he's got a good vibe about him. So I want to watch his next video because he said something to me that either will be interesting or slow walk. And that is, he has a machine that's deliberately printing a shape. Now, the design of that shape could be whatever, but he has a surface treatment on there that is fixed. It's layers, it's layers, it's layers. So now he's got to go in and do something to fix that surface. And this goes back to my idea of, what if you just, with the mold, do one and done? Or is the surface treatment that he's going to do afterward unique every time? And that's what makes his piece organic from a technical standpoint to someone, the hands touched it, and now it looks like a work of art. Let's see what's next. Stay tuned. I like this guy. He's easy to watch.